Hello everyone, this is the thejonnymar and welcome to my latest project. We are going to be playing, as you can see, the Elder Scrolls Daggerfall as a continuation of my roleplay series through the Elder Scrolls series with our character, Marisar. That's right, I am going to be bringing back Marisar's distinct voice in this series at the appropriate times. So although I am certainly not an expert at Daggerfall, I am going to try to tell you as much as I can about this game and show off all the key points of the game to give you sort of a taste of what it's like to experience this game in the series. Now, if you don't know what Marisar is or what the series is about, make sure to check out my earlier videos. But Daggerfall takes place in the Iliac Bay area of Tamriel, around High Rock and Hammerfell. You can actually choose a character from anywhere except the Imperial Province. Imperials do not exist in this particular game, but Marisar is actually a dark elf. He comes from Morrowind. And if you need a little bit of a reminder about who Marisar is and what he's doing, then make sure to watch my previous videos. You can watch the entire arena playthrough, or you can also watch the interlude, which gives you a little bit of a summary of what happened in the arena roleplay playthrough. So Marisar is a dark elf, and he is also a male. And now we can choose a class from a list, or we can generate it by answering questions. We're going to choose a class. There are pre-made classes. They do basically what you would expect. I don't like any of them because essentially they're not optimized. But if you don't want to deal with the custom class system in this game, you can certainly choose something like the Rogue, which is what Marisar essentially is going to be in this game, or something like a Spellblade or an Archer or Ranger. It's entirely up to you. But what we're going to do is use the custom class system, which Daggerfall is actually known for. It's a very in-depth custom class system. There's a lot you can do with it, and there's actually a lot of exploits you can use if you choose to do so, to sort of optimize your character as much as possible. So this is our character sheet. You'll notice we have skills, we have an advancement, and then we have perks and disadvantages. And we also have our stats over here to the left. Now the stats start at 50, and they can go anywhere from 10 to 75. So if you increase stats, what you need to do is go to an additional stat to take those points away. At least that's the way it's supposed to work. The game actually has a debug key in it that allows you to basically zero this out if you want to. So essentially, you can add stats to any of the stats in the game and just push the U key, and it'll essentially zero it out again, getting rid of any negative penalties. So this allows you to basically max out all of your stats at 75 if you choose to. Now, I'm not going to be doing that, but that certainly is something that people do in things like speedruns. What I'm going to be doing is focusing on the stats that matter to me, and those are strength, agility, endurance, and speed. Those are the stats that matter the most to the type of character that I'm going to be building for Marisar to be in this particular roleplay. So he's not going to focus as much on the other stats, things like intelligence or willpower or luck or personality. And the way I kind of add that into the roleplay is that Marisar is not really a courageous person. He is not someone that is going to go out of his way to help other people. So of course he's going to have lower stats such as personality or willpower. And in this game, those stats just aren't that great either. They don't really do much for you. Whereas stats like strength and so on affect statistics you would expect, the other stats basically are less effective than what you would expect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mess with these stats. I'm going to get them all to the levels I want them to be. And then I will come back and I will show you kind of what my final stats look like. So I will see you in a little bit. All right, so we have changed Marisar's stats here to the levels that I want them to be at. You'll notice that I've emphasized strength, agility, endurance, and speed. And then I've still given him a few points in intelligence because basically, you know, he's sort of inclined to be concerned about the magical arts even though he doesn't actively use them. So the second aspect of Daggerfall's system is the skill system. So you need 3 primary skills, 3 major skills, and then 6 minor skills. So Daggerfall is known for having a ton of different skills you can choose from, including the infamous speech skills. So basically these are skills like Dragonish, which allow you to, when you encounter that particular type of enemy, it'll do a skill check to try to pacify the enemy so you don't have to kill it. You can actually just go past it. But essentially you need to pick skills that are consistent with the type of character you want to play. And the most important skills are your primary and major skills, because these are what are generally going to be used to level you up. Similar to later Elder Scrolls games, the more you use the skills, the more they'll level up, and then the quicker you'll level up in-game. So you want to pick skills that are consistent with the type of character you want to build. So I have gone ahead and added all of my skills in here to my skill lists to show you kind of what to expect with Marisar. So these are rogue or thief related skills, and then a few of them are just kind of roleplay type skills like mysticism and restoration. He's sort of interested in the magic arts even though he doesn't really practice them, and you may find that as time goes on he may get more and more interested in them. But the next key aspect of the Daggerfall custom class system is the skill advancement multiplier. So notice this big bar here in the middle of the screen. And what this shows you is essentially how many experience points you're going to acquire when you engage in actions in the game. So the higher you are on this scale, closer to the difficult end, it's going to take more experience points to level up, while the lower you are on the scale, the quicker it'll be to level up. And one of the ways to modify that is to change the amount of hit points that you gain at a level up, and also to modify special advantages or perks and disadvantages. So reputations are how people react to you based on the group that they're a member of or affiliated with. I'm not really going to mess with that, but it's something that you can modify if you want to. What we're going to look at, though, is the real exploitable area of this game, which is the disadvantage and advantage system. So this game has a lot of disadvantages that you can assign to a character that you might want to play in this particular game. And these are things such as a critical weakness. So essentially you will be very weak to a certain thing, such as an element or a particular ailment like disease or poison. You can also take damage from certain locations like sunlight. So if you want to play a vampire, and vampirism does exist in this game, you can certainly add that as a disadvantage for roleplay purposes. You can give yourself a disadvantage in things such as magic ability at certain times of the day. You can forbid a particular armor type or a particular style of armor in terms of the material that the armor is made out of. And this is actually one of the areas where the game is a little odd. So there are 3 particular types of armor that the game really puts a lot of stock in, and that is Dwarven, Steel, and Elven. So if you forbid those types of armor, you will essentially get a lot of points back to offset with an advantage. You also can forbid a particular type of shield. If you're a character that you're playing that essentially would not use shields. Different types of weapons that maybe you want to prevent yourself from using, such as missile weapons or blunt weapons, or even daggers, which are short weapons. There are recovery skills in this game. By having issues with recovery, it'll essentially make it more difficult for you to recover things such as magic points. There's also low tolerance, which essentially is not a critical weakness, but makes you more susceptible to certain aspects such as elemental damage. And then there are phobias, which make you less inclined to deal with certain types of enemies, like humanoids or Daedra. So by equipping these disadvantages, you essentially make the game harder, but some of them can be easily offset by aspects of the advantage system. So the advantages make the game easier and give you certain things like acute hearing, which doesn't really work, adrenaline rush, which doesn't work that great, and athleticism, which doesn't work that great. These are all really bugged and can only be used by certain classes or in the Daggerfall Unity mod. And yes, I'm going to be playing the original vanilla experience of this game without mods. I am not playing the Unity version. This is the version from the Elder Scrolls Anthology. So you actually can give yourself an ease with using certain types of weapons so you can attack more easily with them and hit more often. You can give yourself immunities, where essentially you are immune to certain aspects such as ailments or different elements as well. You can give yourself more spell points, which is based on your intelligence, and this is really important if you're playing a mage character, because the game defaults to only half of your intelligence as spell points when you create a character. So if you are going to play a mage, you're going to want to use one of these advantages, probably the 3 times advantage. And then we have the healing skills. So these again are going to help you heal faster in particular situations or when you're resting. And this can be very helpful because essentially the game requires a lot of time, similar to Arena, to recover your health if you're trying to rest. And I do like the immersed in water option. So if you're playing like an Argonian, that might be a good option to choose. And then we have resistances. They're not immunity, but they give you a certain level of resistance to, again, elements or ailments in the game. And then spell absorption, where basically you absorb spells. But you have to be careful with that because it could actually roll over and cause damage to you from mana burn. So what I'm going to do is pick all of my advantages and disadvantages, and I will meet you back here. Alright, so you will notice that I have maxed out my hit points at level up. My little dagger is down in the red, and I've added some advantages and disadvantages. So I have immunity to magic, I have resistance to fire, because I am a dark elf, and I have expertise in short blade to increase my attacking with the short blade weapon. And these are to offset the disadvantages that I've chosen. So these are critical weakness to disease, paralysis, and poison. Now essentially that is offset by the immunity to magic, which essentially makes you immune to disease, paralysis, and poison. So essentially offsets those issues. I've also forbid dwarven material, tower shields, and axes, because essentially Marisar is a rogue. He does not use any of those types of weapons. So this has allowed me to push the meter down, so essentially I will level up fairly quickly in the game, and I will get a lot of hit points at each level up. So my class is a rogue. So now we need to generate the background. This is basically for role-playing purposes and also determines the items that you start with in the game. So how you answer these questions determines your reputations with certain people in the game and also determines the items that you start the game with. So as you might expect, if you pick certain skills in terms of whether you're good at them or bad, it's going to offset your skill usage and either increase or decrease those skills when it comes to stats. But this question is the most important. You want to pick an ebony dagger because it is the best available option for you. It helps out a lot in the opening dungeon, and it actually can be sold for a lot as well, even if you don't plan on using it that much. So Marisar is someone who is going to be fast, he is going to be nimble, he is going to be agile. He's a dark elf, so he has, a friendliness with Daedra, I suppose, kind of coming from that background. He's not really friendly with any other types of monsters or other characters like that. And essentially, he has saved, since his childhood, not that much. Now, we want to start the game with a few things, so we are going to pick a piece of armor. And we are going to focus on the skills that are important to the rogue class. So these are things such as stealth, attacking with bladed weapons, and riches. Money, money, money. That is what motivates Marisar most of the time. Now these are all the gods of the Imperials, and essentially Marisar being a dark elf, he does not worship any of these gods. He worships the Daedra. And so his god of choice is actually Azura. Although there was some flirting with Mephala in Arena. So this game actually has a pretty in-depth little introduction cutscene that is fully acted. I'll be showing that off in this episode. It does not really apply to the canon of Marisar's background for the most part. If you want to know kind of what's driving Marisar, again, I encourage you to watch previous episodes like the Interlude, which will give you a summary of kind of his motivation and background. Next, we can choose what Marisar looks like. We don't have a lot of options here, just some preset faces. And the one that is closest to how I had Marisar look in Arena is this particular face right here. And at some point, apparently, Marisar picked up an earring. I'm not sure where. And that is mainly because it's the only option. Now, after we choose our face and our background, the game will randomly add numbers to our stats and then also give us a random amount of points we can add to them. So what I've done is I've re-rolled over and over and over again to get the stats that I want, and also the extra stat points that I can add into my statistics to maximize them to where I want them to be. And we can also add some points to our skills. So this will determine how effective we are at our skills at the beginning of the game. So the higher the skill point percentage, the better you are at the skills. So Marisar is a stealthy character that uses daggers, and he also has critical strikes. I'm going to even these out to 15 because that just looks nice, and then I'll throw in the additional stats to other areas. So that looks about right for how I perceive Marisar. And the last thing here is the player reflexes. So how quickly are enemies going to attack you, and essentially, what is the difficulty of the game? So you can put it on very high, it'll make you level up a little faster, or very low, which will make you level up a little lower. But we're going to keep it on the default, which is average. So enemies will attack us at an average rate. So we have finished our character. Now I'm going to let the opening cutscene roll. There's actually 2 of them in a row. So I hope you enjoy that, and I'll meet you on the other side once we have heard from the disembodied voice of the book, and also the Emperor.
"400 years after Tiber Septim's reign, the beginning will meet the end, and the bloody circle will close at the Empire of Tamriel. The unworthy heirs of the Septim dynasty have allowed the bonds of the Empire to weaken and crack. Uriel Septim, the Seventh, cannot repair what his ancestors ignored. The provinces fight among themselves like neglected children, drunk with rebellion, and one indomitable power hides itself, but not forever."
Excuse the gloom, but none may know of this meeting. The nature of my trouble is darker still. Over a year ago, King Lysandus of Daggerfall died honorably on the field of battle. He was as loyal a subject, ally, and friend as you are. I did grieve for him, but his spirit does not rest. With a spectral army, he haunts his former kingdom, crying for revenge. I do not know why a good and loyal man would be so cursed. Perhaps you can find the answer and close the marble jaws of oblivion, bringing peace to his soul. I ask this as your emperor and your friend. I have one lesser request. Several years ago, I wrote a letter to the Queen of Daggerfall. It never arrived. The letter was of a sentimental and personal nature. If you find and destroy that letter, I will be grateful. Now, my champion, rest well this night, for tomorrow you sail for the kingdom of Daggerfall.
Not quite Patrick Stewart, but I think the actor did a really good job. And it was interesting to see Okado there, considering he is an elf, and didn't really look like an elf compared to how he looks in the later games. But after the cutscene, we get this wall of text, which Daggerfall is known for, and essentially it tells you about what happened en route to Daggerfall. So Marisar was actually on a ship. In our canon of his background, he got attacked by pirates and kicked into the Iliac Bay, and he ended up in this particular area. We are going to skip the tutorial because it is essentially not that helpful, and then we are going to save so that we do not have to do all of that again. So we're going to get rid of head bobbing because it gets very annoying. Everything is maxed out in terms of detail and quality. And then these are the controls that I am going to be using for Daggerfall. These are not the default controls. I've modified them to essentially make it control as well as possible for me. I am not a PC gamer. I am not an expert at this game, but this helps me play the game to the best of my ability. Now the game defaults to cursor mode, which is similar to Arena. We have switched it to view mode, which allows you to use the mouse to look up and down and around the room. And you can actually play with a joystick as well, although I've never tried that. So we have now gotten into the entrance area. We're gonna take a look around, kind of where we ended up, and see what Marisar is in for here. So we have a nice little fire, so that's good. We're going to access our cursor here. We have options here. We can equip our fists or a weapon. If you bring up your inventory, you'll notice what is in your inventory based on the questions you answered during the background section. We do have 2 daggers, including the ebony dagger, the mysterious ebony dagger, in our particular roleplay experience. And then we have some armor as well. So we are going to equip all of this to Marisar to make him as formidable as possible, such as it is early in the game. Now, I don't want to use the daggers yet because they do have durability, so I'm actually going to equip him with the long blade. And then we'll throw the armor and also the buckler on him. We'll save the daggers for later. So now in order to use the weapon, you have to actually equip it and bring it out. You'll notice that there are different interaction modes for dealing with the environment as well as other people. You can access your spellbook. Marisar is not a spellcaster, so he has very few spell points, and these spells are not the greatest, even if I could use them well. We have a movement mode, which will come into play later in the game. And then we have another infamous aspect of Daggerfall, which is the map system. This map system sucks really bad. It is a 3D map. The Daggerfall dungeons have multiple floors, which on the surface seems awesome, but they get very complicated and difficult to maneuver around very quickly. We also have a resting system. You start off with your fatigue not maxed out, which is interesting. So we will bring out our weapon. Marisar is done resting here at his campfire. You have to move the mouse while holding the right button, or whatever button you've chosen in your controls to attack. And now that we've done all that, we're going to save before heading into the dungeon. Alright, so here we go. What to expect, we don't know. We're going to crouch, because we're the sneaky type, and it actually helps with the stealth abilities of this game. And we encounter this door with some interesting sounds on the other side. And it's a rat. And the rat died. Not too bad. It's not uncommon for people to die to that rat. We have a treasure pile here. We get some money and a book. Pretty valuable book. We will add that to our inventory. Treasure piles are randomized, so you never know what you're going to get. And you do want to be standing when going upstairs, otherwise it is difficult to go upstairs to another level. It'll activate what's called climbing mode, which is something in this game. You can climb up walls. So we're going to try to be careful here and sneak around the corner in case there are any more enemies, which there is. There's a bat. Can we sneak up on it? No. It apparently hurt us. And it is hitting us. Stop hitting us, stupid bat. Please die. Huh. I beat the rat, but I almost died to the bat. That would have been ironic and embarrassing. Alright. Well, let's heal before continuing on. And apparently there's a room right here. Let's see what's inside. What in oblivion is that? Run away. Oh no, it's chasing us. Oh geez, what am I supposed to do? Someone save me. Azura, please protect me. We're gonna run. We're gonna run and try to figure out what we have to do. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please press like and leave a comment below. Please also subscribe to my channel and press the notification bell. See you next time.